Milk paint versus chalk paint. What the heck is the difference? You know, at one point in time, I didn't know either. And in fact, I went to the craft store and bought some milk paint, tried it out, hated it, threw it away. And what I thought would be never looking back ended up becoming my favorite paint to use of all time. So today I'm going to go over with you 5 ways that milk paint is different than chalk paint. I'm going to go over all the great things about both, when to use them, how to use them, and so that you can tackle your next milk paint or chalk paint project with 100% confidence. Welcome everyone, I'm Heidi and I'm so glad you have found my YouTube channel. This is the home of Revive Heart and Home, where it is my goal here to help you decorate your home in both eco-friendly and budget-friendly ways, usually in the vein of shabby chic, French farmhouse, or any similar vein. So thank you for checking me out. While you're here, be sure to check out all of my playlists. I have everything from basics to advanced furniture painting and decorating, and today is going to be a video in my educational series. So buckle up and let's talk about the differences between milk paint and chalk paint. What is the difference between milk paint and chalk paint from a standpoint of what it's made of? So first, let's talk about milk paint. So milk paint is called milk paint because it is actually made from milk. Now you can buy it in a powdered form or in a liquid form. I recommend the powdered form, and I'll get to why in a second. But basically it is water, pigment, a little bit of lime, and powdered milk. And it is, because of that, it is super eco-friendly, and it has been around for literally thousands and thousands of years. So because it is made from milk, it has a shelf life. Now, I told you I was going to talk to you a little bit about the difference between the powdered form and the liquid form. So a couple of brands you may know are Amy Howard at Home, which comes in a bag like this. Also Miss Mustard Seed milk paint. And those both come in powdered. But let me tell you, the powdered form has an infinite shelf life. You can keep it, like I do on my shelves, and for as long as you want until you're ready to use it, and you just mix it in a 1-to-1 ratio with some water. Now, if you go to the craft store and you find some that thing like that, and you find some that are already pre-mixed, they because it's milk and it's obviously not refrigerated, it means it has preservatives in it, and all of those extra things that you add into it will change the way that it behaves. And so if you really want an authentic looking and behaving milk paint, you will want to get the powdered form and then just mix it up in a 1-to-1 ratio with water in a container, and there you go. Fair warning though, like I said, it's milk. It needs to be refrigerated after you use it, and it will be good in the refrigerator for about up to 2 weeks, and then you'll start smelling it because it will spoil. So now let's talk about chalk paint. Chalk paint, or chalk-based paint, or mineral paint, it comes under a lot of different names. And one thing to look for, and I have a whole other video you can check out here as to why I've chosen Amy Howard's one-step paint, is that not all chalk-based paints are created equally. A lot of the ones that you will find at your craft stores are actually just glorified acrylic or latex paint. So they'll take an acrylic paint or craft paint, and they will add calcium carbonate, which is the primary ingredient in chalk paint. It, again, will behave like an acrylic, and it is not definitely as eco-friendly as a straight, pure chalk-based paint. So again, latex paint, a lot of times you have seen or maybe even tried yourself making your own chalk paint, and you'll go to your hardware store and get some latex paint and add some chalk powder or plaster of Paris. And again, that will give you a matte sheen, which is what chalk-based paints are known for, but it really isn't a true chalk paint, and it won't necessarily behave like a true chalk paint. So calcium carbonate, casein, or which is milk basically, or milk. And so those are the major differences in the makeup of each of the paints. Okay, let's talk about consistency. Now this is the thing, when I tried milk paint for the first time, I was like, is this right? This doesn't seem right. And I ended up putting it on some furniture and it was so thin and it needed lots of coats. And I've seen another video out there too that said they use like 13 coats of milk paint on their kitchen cabinets. And I think there's a lot of confusion again about how to use it. So I want to clear that up. So let's first talk about, like I said, consistency. Now, I've mixed up a batch here. Now this, because it doesn't have any binders in it or any other chemicals, you will need to agitate it and stir it up frequently because it will start to separate from the water. I want to show you that this is very, very thin. It will behave, and from a pouring standpoint, just like water. It's very thin, it'll be translucent, and it will run if you put it on a vertical surface. So just be aware. And for that, because of that, the nature of that, I always recommend that when you are painting a piece with milk paint, that you turn, if you can, turn it on its back and paint on a horizontal surface. Okay, now for chalk paint. Chalk paint is very thick, and you can see here just the differences in how thick it is. It pours on a lot slower. It will stick to a vertical surface when you apply it, and generally you only need 1 to 2 coats. Okay, so related to the thickness of the paints, let's talk about coverage for a second. So like I said, chalk paint is very thick. Now, like I said, you can do, if it's a dark color, you might be able to get away with 1 coat. With whites or light colors, you might need 3 coats. But for a color like this salmon color here, 2 coats is just fine. And you're gonna get a solid, matte, smooth finish on whatever you are painting. Now, chalk paint, milk paint, like I mentioned, is more translucent, it's thinner, and you can apply it to either raw wood, finished wood to an extent, or a chalk painted surface. Now, if you apply it to a chalk painted surface, like you put this down as a base coat, it depends on the color of the base coat and the color of the milk paint will determine how many coats you need. So let's say this was a white, the chalk paint was a white, and you come in with a darker color, you will probably only need 2 coats. But again, the look that you are going for is a little bit of a translucent, aged, old world look, and you're not necessarily shooting to get a solid, non-translucent finish. So again, it depends on what look you are going for. If you are using milk paint all by itself, I often layer, and the rule of thumb for doing that is you will want to layer from lightest to darkest. So put down, if you have a coat of chalk paint or stain or raw wood, you'll want to start off with a light color like white or beige or a light gray, and then work your way up to the darker color if you want that on top. And the more you layer, the more solid it will become, and you will be less and less translucent the more paint you add. But you don't need to add 15 layers of paint to get to a solid state. If that's really what you want, I recommend a chalk paint. Okay, what do you use each project for? Now, I teed it up just a little bit in the last section, but this is really, I think, the biggest takeaway that you can take from this video, if you take anything at all, is the differences in the looks that you can achieve. Now, chalk paint or chalk-based paint is very versatile. Like, you can paint walls with it, you can paint just about any surface as long as it's clean, of course, and you will get a solid matte finish. Now, obviously, it's very, very popular these days, and you can get an antique look, or you can get even like a modern farmhouse look. And so it is very versatile in that it comes in a bazillion different colors. You can make your own color. So, you know, it's a good all-around paint for furniture, for your walls even, and for crafting. But why milk paint is my favorite. So if you want an antique look, a shabby chic look, French country, French farmhouse, chippy, aged, if you lean in that direction at all, or if you have a piece that's like carved and has lots of intricate details, this is the kind of paint that you're going to want to use. And the thing that you want to know about colors is that the color that it is in its dry state is the color that it will be when it dries. When you add water, it will get darker. And you may be painting it on and going, oh my gosh, I hate this color. But trust it, trust the process. When it dries, it will dry down to the exact same color that was in the bag or that you made up ahead of time. So let me show you a few examples of the types of finishes that milk paint can achieve. Okay, so now that you've seen a couple of the looks that you can achieve with milk paint, and I know that you know what chalk paint looks like, let's talk a little bit about how to use them. So again, I've gone over how to mix up milk paint, and one important thing that you want to know, because it is a totally natural paint, you will want to always use a natural fiber brush. I have tons of these chip brushes I ordered from Amazon. You can also get them from Amy Howard at home. And it just works well with the chemical makeup of milk paint in general. It also, because the brush, the bristles aren't as dense, it allows you to create more of a texture on your piece, which is what you want when you are creating an old world finish. Now, if you're wanting a really smooth finish with this chalk paint, that's where I suggest a microfiber brush, like the one that I used in a couple previous steps. That's a synthetic brush. And those microfibers will help create as much of a brush-free finish as possible. So highly recommend synthetic brush with this and a natural fiber brush with milk paint. Drying times are a little bit different. They're both fairly quick. The chalk paint's going to dry a little bit more slowly than milk paint because just milk paint has more water in it, it's thinner. And of course you can use a heat gun or a hairdryer to speed up the process, but generally milk paint will dry in about 15-20 minutes and chalk paint anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour depending on conditions. Okay, like I mentioned before, vertical surface, A-okay, horizontal surface, best. If you can't turn your piece of furniture over, what I normally do is have a lint-free rag in one hand and my brush in the other, and I offload the brush a lot before I put it on a vertical surface, just so you're not getting a ton of water and it's not dripping down. If you do get drips, I just dab them up with my brush, with my towel, and you're good to go. One of the hallmark qualities of milk paint and why you want to use it is because it doesn't have any adhesion qualities, or at least very little. Whereas chalk paint, because it has calcium carbonate in it, will stick to just about any paint out there. But milk paint doesn't have much. And if you've tried it and you're like, this sands right off, or it flakes off, or it comes off, that's what you want it to do. You want it to get that antique look. You want it to do that. That's one of its best qualities. Now, if you wanted a solid milk paint finish that doesn't antique off, you don't want it to be able to come off with a sponge, there's something called milk paint binder, and you just mix this in with your liquid milk paint after you've mixed it up. And now it's because it's white, it will lighten the color a little bit, so please be aware of that. But if you just wanted you wanted to see the brush strokes and you wanted almost a solid but a little bit of a translucent finish with milk paint, but you wanted it to stick for good and not be able to antique it, this is what you will want to add to your milk paint. Okay, so now you're probably wondering, like, if milk paint comes off so easily, like, isn't it just going to come off over time? Not if you seal it. So here again is another difference between the two paints. Usually chalk paint, depending on the brand, doesn't have to necessarily be sealed. Usually you can cover it with a wax or an acrylic sealer and you're good to go. And if you forget, no biggie. It may pick up stains and spots and fingerprints more often, but it's not going to come off. you always, always, always have to seal milk paint. So you can use an acrylic sealer, but to be more authentically true to the timelessness and authenticity of milk paint, I like to use Mind Your Own beeswax. It is a true beeswax. It's a liquid wax, and so again, if you're using it on a piece that has lots of carving, this stuff gets in all the cracks and crevices, and it allows you to mix in Dust of Ages, which I'll go over in a whole other tutorial, or other pigments to further antique it. So this is a product I really love. But again, if you take away one thing from this portion of the tutorial, is don't necessarily have to seal with chalk paint. Milk paint, you always have to seal. Okay, the final thing, of course, is your pocketbook. What do these two things cost? What's more economical? And you know, I hate to tell you, it's kind of a toss-up. And really, the price of chalk-based paints really varies widely. If you go to the craft store, you can find your cheap ones. Again, I don't recommend using that just because I don't think you're going to be happy with the results. Amy's paint comes in both the 16-ounce size, that's really affordable for, I think it's like $16 or $17 for smaller projects, and then bigger size for your bigger projects, and I think those are like $35. Milk paint is around $18 for a bag, but it goes a long way. Now for a big project, like a big bed or something, I would use probably 2 bags of the same color, or I might layer, do one light color and one dark color. So that's, you know, 18 times 2 is about equivalent of a quart of the chalk paint. So really, it's kind of a toss-up. Both are fairly economical in the long run when you really think about doing your own piece versus going to buy something new. And in fact, the looks that you can get from using milk paint compared to going out and buying a true antique with milk paint that's gone back several hundred years to like a Swedish Gustavian look. If you don't know what that is, check it out, Google it, you'll love it. Really cents on the dollar. So again, I really encourage you to try it out, find a project. Even if you don't want to try out on a big project, get some sample boards. Go to your hardware store and get some trim in the lumber section, and just buy a sample of each. There's sample chalk paints and sample milk paints sizes. They're like this size right here, that you can, you know, try it out for like $7, and you're not going to commit yourself to anything. So buy a couple samples, try it out, see what you like. And of course, if you ever have any questions about Amy's products, or products in general, or how to use them, or you just need some advice, feel free to reach out to me. My email is revivebyheidi@gmail.com. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you for watching to the end. If you found this content helpful, it would mean the world to me if you could give me a quick subscribe and a like. It helps me increase my views and allows me to bring more videos like this to you to help you decorate your home in both eco-friendly and budget-friendly ways. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.